I remember the first night I drove out to the QuickStop in Harrowfield. The air was thick with that damp, metallic chill that clings to your throat in the countryside after dark. My headlights carved a narrow tunnel through the fog, and beyond it, the road stretched like an empty ribbon of asphalt. No cars, no people, no sound except the faint hum of the engine and the rhythmic squeak of my wipers. 15 minutes before midnight, I pulled into the parking lot. The store's fluorescent sign flickered, QuickStop, one letter already burned out. A gray sedan was parked crooked across two spaces. Ethan Walsh's car, my new trainee. I remember rolling my eyes, muttering something under my breath about kids these days. Harrowfield isn't the kind of town that stays awake after dark. By 9, every window shuts and the only lights left burning are the ones at QuickStop. I always thought that was strange when I first started. The town sleeps early, maybe because it knows better. I shut off the engine and just sat there for a while, watching the faint steam curl up from the hood of my car. For a moment I thought about Sophie and Liam, probably asleep by now, tucked into bed at Mrs. Elliott's place. My shift would end at 6, just in time to get them ready for school. That's what I told myself every night. One more shift, Laura. Just one more and it'll be fine. When I stepped out of the car, the night hit me like a wet cloth, cold, heavy, and full of static. I could hear the faint buzz of the store's lights even from here. It wasn't just electricity. It was like the building itself was humming, breathing. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bleach and coffee. The hum of refrigerators filled the silence like a low chant. I've worked the night shift long enough to know that silence isn't empty, it's alive. Ethan was behind the counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked up with a smirk. "Hey, you must be Laura, the legendary night shift survivor." "Something like that," I said, hanging my jacket on the hook. "You're early." "Figured I'd get a head start." He gestured around. "Doesn't seem too bad here, kinda cozy actually." I wanted to laugh. Cozy wasn't the word I'd use. The place was a box of white tiles, a few aisles of snacks, a coffee machine that groaned like an old man, and a back room that smelled like mold and rust. But sure, cozy. I clocked in, grabbed the laminated sheet taped beside the register, and handed it to him. "Rules," I said simply. He glanced over it, frowning. "Lock the front door at exactly 10 p.m. Don't investigate sounds from the restroom or storage room between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. He laughed. "You serious with this?" "I'm serious about all of it." He raised an eyebrow. "What is this, like some hazing ritual?" spooked the newbie. I didn't answer. I watched his reflection in the glass fridge door. The way the lights flickered above him, almost in rhythm with his words. The QuickStop has that effect, it listens. I walked him through the rest of the list. Never work alone. Never sell alcohol after 1. And if the lights blink 3 times, you go straight into the back room and wait exactly 10 minutes. No more, no less. He laughed again, that careless kind of laugh that only the young have. "Sounds like a horror story. You believe in this stuff?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I don't believe in it, Ethan. I've seen it." He stopped smiling then, just for a moment. Then he shrugged, pocketed the list, and went back to checking his phone. The hours dragged on. Midnight came and went. A drunk man stumbled in for cigarettes. A delivery truck dropped off a crate of bottled water. Mundane things. Safe things. But every time the automatic doors hissed open, I felt that same pull, like something outside was watching us, waiting for a mistake. Around 2 a.m., I found Ethan leaning on the counter again, staring at the security monitor. "Hey," he said, "why's the camera in the restroom hallway glitching like that?" I looked at the monitor. The image was static, crackling with snow and faint shapes moving behind the noise. "Probably nothing," I said. "It happens sometimes." But my stomach tightened. He frowned. "Looks like someone walking." "Don't," I cut him off before he could finish. "You're not supposed to look too long." He laughed softly. Okay, now you're just trying to freak me out. Maybe I was, or maybe I was trying to save his life. At 3:42, the lights flickered once, twice. Ethan looked up. What now? I didn't move. I just counted silently in my head. 1, 2. The lights flickered a third time. Back room, I said, my voice steady but low. Now. Ethan hesitated, then followed me. I shut the heavy door behind us and checked my watch. 10 minutes. No more, no less. The hum outside seemed to grow louder, like whispers pressed against the walls. He looked at me, uneasy now. What's happening out there? I didn't answer. I never do. The store has rules, and some of them exist to protect your sanity as much as your body. When the 10 minutes passed, we stepped back out. Everything was normal again. The shelves untouched, the hum back to its usual quiet, but the air was heavier, like the store had exhaled something it shouldn't have. Ethan said nothing after that, just went back to his post, pale and quiet. When I clocked out at dawn, the fog outside had lifted. The sun painted the sky in soft pink streaks, and for a second, Harrowfield looked peaceful again. But as I drove home, the hum of the QuickStop still echoed in my ears. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the store was still awake, watching me leave. People always ask me why I keep that job. If they knew what QuickStop really was, they'd think I'm insane for going back there every night. But when you're a single mother, sanity doesn't pay the bills. Sophie's school fees, Liam's asthma medication, rent, it all adds up. The QuickStop pays almost double the normal night shift wage. That should have been a red flag. Instead, I took it as a blessing. I learned the truth on my second week. And since then, I've followed every rule like scripture. Ethan didn't understand that yet. The next night I arrived early again. The same fog, the same broken sign buzzing faintly in the dark. Ethan was waiting inside, slouched on a stool, reading a tabloid newspaper. Evening, he said, without looking up. So, I've been thinking, what's the worst that could actually happen if someone didn't follow your creepy little rule list? I didn't answer at first. I walked to the coffee machine, poured myself a cup, and stared at the reflection of the store lights in the liquid surface. The reflection shimmered slightly, like heat waves. You ever heard of Clara? I asked. He shook his head. She worked here before me, sweet girl, never complained, never late. One night she stayed past her shift to clean up alone, thought she'd save time for the morning crew. I turned to him. She never went home. Ethan frowned. You're serious? They found her car still parked outside, her purse on the counter. The front door was locked from the inside. What happened to her? I met his eyes. They never found out. All the cameras glitched at exactly 2:17 a.m. for 10 minutes. When the feed came back, she was gone. He stared at me, searching for a hint of exaggeration, but I didn't blink. I could almost see the gears turning in his head, disbelief wrestling with unease. Maybe she just quit, he muttered finally. Maybe, I said softly, but you'll notice no one in Harrowfield ever applies for the night shift twice. It was 9:55 when I checked the clock. The ritual of locking up was sacred. You had to do it exactly right. I walked to the front door, turned the key, and pulled the deadbolt. Ethan watched, arms crossed. You think locking up 5 minutes early really matters? I gave a thin smile. It's not about the lock, Ethan, it's about the timing. He smirked. You think the boogeyman runs on a schedule? I didn't bother replying. Some lessons you can't explain. You let the night do it for you. When I turned around, I caught something in the corner of my eye, a flicker outside the glass door, just a shadow, probably a tree branch swaying. Still, I froze. Ethan noticed. What you see? Nothing, I said quickly. Just stay behind the counter. That's the thing about the QuickStop. You can convince yourself nothing's wrong until you start noticing the patterns, the small things. Like how the security cameras sometimes show people entering the store a second before the door opens. Or how the aisles never seem to end up in quite the same order when you come in for your next shift. Around midnight, the regulars came in. Mr. Jenkins, the old farmer with nicotine-stained fingers, bought his usual coffee and scratch card. Then there was Margaret, a frail woman in a floral nightgown who always came for bread but never paid with cash, only coins so old and worn that the Queen's face was nearly gone. They were harmless enough, usually. At 12:47, a man I didn't recognize came in. His hood was pulled low, and he moved like every limb was out of sync with the others. He stopped at the back of the store near the frozen section and just stood there. "Customer," Ethan whispered. "Stay here," I said quietly. I didn't look directly at the man, just enough to see his reflection in the fridge door. His head twitched slightly, too fast, too sharp. Then all at once he turned toward us. His face wasn't wrong exactly, but it wasn't right either. Like someone had built it from memory and got the proportions slightly off. My heart hammered. "Ethan," I said slowly, "turn off the music." He blinked. "What?" "Turn it off." He did, and the silence that followed felt alive, like the store itself was holding its breath. The man smiled, his lips stretching wider than they should. Then he whispered something, soft, almost musical. Ethan took a step forward, frowning. "Did he just—" "Don't look at him," I hissed. "What? Why?" "Don't look at him." I turned away, eyes fixed on the linoleum floor, counting my breaths. The sound of footsteps, slow, uneven, moved toward the counter, then stopped. Something cold brushed my hand. I flinched back and heard Ethan gasp. When I looked up again, the man was gone. The automatic door hadn't opened. No sound, no trace. Ethan's face had gone pale. What the hell was that? I rubbed my wrist. It still felt cold where he'd touched me. "That," I said, "is why you never look them in the eyes." He swallowed hard. "Them. The ones that don't belong here." We finished the shift in silence. The hum of the refrigerators, the occasional groan of the pipes, it all sounded louder after that. When the first light of dawn broke through the fog, Ethan muttered, "Maybe I'll take tomorrow off, just to process." I nodded. "You do that." As he walked to his car, I caught his reflection once more in the glass door. For a heartbeat, his shadow didn't move with him. It just stayed, watching me. And I knew then, he wasn't ready for the night. By midnight, the rain had turned into a soft drizzle. The parking lot outside was empty except for one car, Ethan's old blue sedan, glistening under the flickering streetlight. Inside the store, everything was still. Too still. Ethan had been in the back for almost 20 minutes. That wasn't unusual. He liked to take long breaks, scrolling on his phone or half-dozing beside the stock shelves. But something about tonight made the silence heavier. It pressed against my ears like a held breath. "Ethan," I called, leaning slightly toward the stockroom door. No answer. I sighed and glanced at the CCTV monitor again. One camera showed the hallway leading to the storage area. The motion sensor light had turned on. But Ethan wasn't there. Just the open stockroom door swinging gently back and forth, like someone had just passed through. I hesitated, remembering his warning, "Don't open the door again. Don't leave after midnight." But curiosity always finds a way to sound reasonable. I told myself I'd just check if he'd gone out for a smoke. Maybe he was outside under the awning. Maybe. I walked toward the back hallway. The store's hum faded with each step, replaced by the low, electric buzz of the security lights. The walls here always seemed narrower than they should be, as if the building itself were slightly warped. When I reached the door, I noticed something odd: muddy footprints. Barefoot. They trailed from the back exit and stopped right at the threshold of the stockroom. The mud was fresh, wet, smelling faintly of metal. My heart skipped. Ethan wouldn't walk barefoot, not out here. "Ethan," I tried again, my voice small. A noise answered me, faint, like a soft sob. It came from inside the stockroom. I pushed the door open. The motion light flickered on and off, revealing rows of dusty boxes and plastic crates. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, warping across the floor. And there, between two stacks of shelves, was Ethan's phone, screen cracked, still playing a video on mute. But no Ethan. The sobbing sound grew louder, echoing strangely like it came from inside the walls. Then, silence. The door slammed shut behind me. I turned sharply, hand trembling on the handle, but it wouldn't move. The knob twisted freely, as if disconnected from the latch. Something scraped along the floor behind me. A dragging sound, slow and deliberate. I spun around, my flashlight shaking. A long smear of muddy footprints now crossed the aisle, leading deeper into the shadows. The beam of light caught something on the far wall. Handprints, dozens of them. Pressed into the drywall, smeared with the same dark mud, some small like a child, some large. The air felt thick, like breathing through wet cloth. My chest tightened. Then a whisper. "Close, too close. Laura." It was Ethan's voice. But it wasn't coming from anywhere I could see. It was coming from inside the walls. I stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of boxes. They crashed to the floor, spilling canned soup and water bottles. The light overhead flickered violently, once, twice, then went out completely. Darkness. For a second I could still hear it, Ethan's voice, whispering my name again and again, overlapping, multiplied, like there were dozens of him calling from behind the walls. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I found my way to the emergency light switch by touch. My hand brushed something cold, damp like skin, before I hit the button. The light flared back to life. The footprints were gone. The walls were clean. And Ethan's phone had vanished. I stood there, shaking, trying to convince myself that stress and bad lighting had played tricks on me. But when I finally got the back door open, the air that rushed in was freezing, and outside, next to Ethan's car, was a single muddy footprint. Barefoot, facing toward the store. When the sun rose the next morning, I told myself it was over. That whatever happened, the footprints, the whispering, the impossible disappearance, could all be explained. Maybe Ethan just left. Maybe I imagined the rest. That's what I told myself. But deep down, I knew the truth. People don't just vanish into thin air. The next night I was alone again. No replacement, no call from Ethan. His number went straight to voicemail, that flat, robotic voice saying, "This number is no longer in service." I almost quit right there. But rent was due, and the manager didn't seem to care that one of his employees had gone missing. He just texted, "Clock in like normal. Don't worry about Ethan, we'll handle it." Handle it? Sure. By 10:00 p.m., the store was empty. The only sound was the freezer humming and the rain ticking against the windows. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the aisles, something to keep my hands moving, but every time I passed the stockroom door, my stomach turned. It was taped shut now, a strip of yellow plastic stretched across it like a weak attempt at control. But it didn't matter. The smell still leaked out, faint, sour, like wet concrete and metal. At midnight, the power flickered. All the lights in the store went out at once, not the usual quick surge, but a slow, pulsing dimness. The exit signs glowed faint red in the dark. Then came the sound. A faint click, 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 like something tapping on glass. I turned toward the front windows. Nothing there, just my reflection, barely visible in the dark. Click, click, click. It was coming from the cooler doors, the glass refrigerators in the back aisle. The ones with the sodas and energy drinks. Each tap grew louder, sharper. I moved closer, my shoes squeaking on the tile. The beam of my flashlight danced across rows of bottles until it caught something, movement. A handprint, pressed against the inside of the glass. But it wasn't fogged or smeared. It was perfectly clean, as if the condensation had formed around it. And it wasn't fading. My heart raced. I stepped closer. The light trembled in my hand. Behind the glass, a shape flickered, a shadow, tall and thin, standing between the rows of drinks. I froze. The door handle twitched once, twice, then jerked violently, rattling against the frame. The overhead lights flashed back on with a sudden buzz. And the door was still. The handprint gone. I took a step back, breathing hard. My reflection looked pale, ghost-like under the harsh fluorescent light. Then something else caught my eye, the reflection of a figure standing behind me. I spun around. No one. The air behind the counter shifted, cold, like someone had opened a freezer. That's when I heard it again. Laura, whispered from the PA system, the one above the counter that hadn't worked since I started. The speaker crackled, then hissed, and a voice, low and strained, came through. Don't open the door. My skin went cold. I stumbled backward, staring at the speaker, heart pounding. It was Ethan's voice. The exact same tone, same rasp, same way he used to draw out words when he was serious. And then just as suddenly, silence. The clock on the wall ticked past 12:01. And I realized something that made my stomach twist. The stockroom door, the one that had been taped shut, was open again. The tape hung loose, torn in the middle, swinging gently in the air-conditioned breeze. The strip of yellow tape fluttered like a dying thing. For a moment, I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to turn, lock the doors, and run straight into the rain. But my body refused to obey. I just stood there, frozen, staring at that open stockroom door as the air around me grew thick and heavy, like the store itself was holding its breath. Finally, I forced myself to whisper, Ethan. No answer, only the faint hum of the refrigerators and that smell, stronger now, damp metal, something rotten under the floor. I took a shaky step toward the back. The light above the doorway flickered weakly, pulsing with a rhythm that almost matched my heartbeat. The rule echoed in my head. Do not investigate noises or movement in the stockroom between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. I knew better, but something in me, maybe guilt, maybe denial, pushed me forward anyway. The air inside the stockroom was colder than it should have been. My breath fogged faintly in the beam of my flashlight. The shelves were lined with supplies, paper towels, cartons, cleaning chemicals. Everything looked perfectly normal except for the back wall. Someone had scratched something into the plaster. At first I thought it was random damage, like someone dragged a heavy crate too close. But as I aimed the light higher, I realized they were letters. Carved deep, jagged, unsteady. Don't look at them. The words stretched across the wall, ending in a smear of something darker than dirt. I felt my stomach lurch. Behind me, something clicked, the sound of a light switch being flipped, though I hadn't touched anything. The overhead light flickered once, twice, and then the radio on the supply shelf, the one we used for background noise during shifts, hissed to life. Static. Then faintly, a voice buried in the noise. Laura. I froze. The sound was warped, metallic, like a recording played backward through water. Behind. The flashlight trembled in my hand as I turned slowly. The room was empty. I tried to move toward the radio, but the sound shifted again, no longer whispering. Now it was rhythmic, breathing through the static. In, out, in, out. Then suddenly, another voice overlapped, Ethan. Don't let them touch you. The flashlight beam jumped as my hands shook. Ethan, where are you? Silence, then knock, 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 3 sharp raps from inside the wall. I stumbled back, the beam catching a hairline crack running along the plaster. The knocks came again, louder this time, and the entire shelf beside me rattled. Something moved behind the wall. A slow, dragging scrape, like nails clawing through the wood. And then from the crack, a thin stream of black liquid seeped out, thick, glistening, and reeking of rust and rot. I gasped and stumbled back, nearly tripping over a mop bucket. The radio screamed a high-pitched screech of distortion and burst into sparks. The lights went out. I dropped to the floor, the flashlight my only anchor in the dark. For a moment, the beam flickered across the far wall, and that's when I saw it. A hand. No, not a hand. The outline of one pressing from inside the wall. The plaster bent outward, thin cracks spidering around it. Then another hand, and another, dozens. The walls pulsed. The air vibrated with a low hum, like static trapped in my skull. And beneath it all voices, whispering over one another. She shouldn't be here. You opened the doors. The night never ends. The pressure grew until my ears rang. I backed out of the room, slamming the door shut once, twice, 3 times until it clicked. The instant it did, the whisper stopped. I stood there in the hallway, shaking, gasping for air. My hands were slick with sweat, or maybe that black liquid. When I looked down, I saw something new, a set of footprints on the floor, bare, wet, leading from the stockroom toward the front of the store. I followed them slowly, unwillingly, until they stopped behind the counter, right where Ethan used to stand. And sitting there on the register was his name tag. Still wet, still dripping. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at Ethan's name tag, the black droplets glistening on the counter. The clock above the register ticked softly in the silence, its second hand jerking forward like it was struggling to keep time. 2:43 a.m. The rain outside had stopped. The air inside felt wrong, heavy, thick, like the store was sealed off from the rest of the world. Even the buzzing of the lights seemed slower, deeper, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Then I heard it. The sound that had started everything that night. Ding! The front door chime. But I hadn't unlocked it. My head snapped toward the entrance. The automatic doors stood wide open, the kind of open that the security system shouldn't allow. A gust of cold, wet air swept through the aisles, making the plastic wrappers rustle like insects. For a second, I thought maybe it was Mr. Gray, or a customer who somehow forced the door. But as I peered through the glass, there was nothing, no car, no movement, just the dark parking lot reflecting the store's flickering lights. Then a figure stepped inside. A woman, short, wearing a beige raincoat that glistened under the lights. Her hair was wet and matted, her shoes squeaking against the tiles. She carried a small paper bag, crumpled and soggy, clutched close to her chest. I froze. Something about her face didn't register right, like my brain was seeing it but refusing to process it. Her eyes were empty. Not rolled back, not black, just blank, like she hadn't decided what expression to wear. "Good evening," I managed to say, my voice thin. We're about to close soon." She didn't respond. She just walked down aisle 2, the canned goods, and stopped halfway. I could hear her humming faintly. A child's song, maybe. A tune that didn't belong in a place like this. Then she started placing things in the paper bag, slowly, deliberately. Only there was nothing in her hands. She mimed the act of taking items from the shelves and dropping them into the bag, even though the shelves were empty. Each time her hand moved, I heard the faintest thud, like invisible cans hitting each other. "Ma'am," I called again, louder this time. No answer. The humming stopped. Her head turned toward me, not her body, just her head, tilting in a sharp, unnatural angle until her chin brushed her shoulder. My flashlight beam trembled across her face. Her eyes were gone. Empty sockets, black and glistening like the walls of the stockroom. "Ma'am, please." She dropped the paper bag. It hit the floor with a wet slap, and something spilled out thick and dark, spreading across the tiles like oil. I took a step back. My foot hit something. Ethan's name tag. When I looked up again, she was standing right in front of me. Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, ice cold, bone-thin fingers digging into my skin. I screamed and yanked back, but she didn't move. She just leaned closer, her voice a guttural rasp that came from inside her throat rather than her mouth. "You left the door open." Then her grip loosened. Her body twitched once, twice, and collapsed. I stumbled back as her form hit the ground with a hollow crack. But it didn't stop there. Her body began to flatten, like a deflating balloon, skin folding inward, limbs melting into the puddle of black liquid. Within seconds, she was gone, absorbed into the floor, leaving only the faint imprint of her shape on the tiles. The store lights flickered violently. Every bulb buzzed and screamed. And then, for the first time since the night began, the emergency phone behind the counter rang. A harsh, metallic sound that sliced through the static silence. I ran for it, grabbed the receiver. "Hello?" For a moment, nothing but static. Then Mr. Gray's voice, calm, controlled. "Laura, listen carefully. You need to lock the front door. Do not look outside. And whatever you do, if the lights go out, don't move. They see motion." My breath caught. "Mr. Gray, what's happening? Who are they?" A long pause. Then softly, "They don't come from here." The line went dead. The fluorescent lights above me flickered one last time and then snapped off. The store fell into absolute darkness. Somewhere near the glass doors, I heard the sound of fingernails tapping, dozens of them, scraping gently against the windows. And in the blackness, something laughed. I thought that night would be the end of me. But somehow I survived. Mr. Gray came before sunrise. He didn't say much, just told me to take 2 days off and that the incident was being handled. When I asked him what that thing was, he simply said, "It's not the first time, and it won't be the last." Then he smiled, a small, tired smile, and handed me a new laminated sheet of the store's rules, the same ones I'd already memorized. Except this time, there was an extra line written in faded ink at the bottom. "Never trust a reflection after 3:00 a.m. I didn't ask, I didn't want to know. 2 nights later, I came back. The rain had turned into a fine mist, coating the parking lot in a thin, glassy sheen. The QuickStop sign buzzed weakly overhead, flickering between QuickStop and QuickStop. Half the bulbs had burned out. A car was already parked out front, small, blue, clean, out of place in this town. When I walked in, she was behind the counter, sorting stock with shaky hands. "Chloe Harper?" I asked. She turned around. Early 20s, neat ponytail, eyes that darted too quickly to the corners of the store, like she'd already sensed something was wrong. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "Mr. Gray said you show me the ropes." Her politeness made me uneasy. I was used to cocky kids like Ethan, but Chloe, she looked afraid before anything even happened. "All right," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's start with the basics." We went through the usual training routine, though I left out some of the truth. She didn't need to hear about Ethan's mangled body or the woman with no eyes. Not yet. But she noticed the rules taped behind the register. Her brow furrowed. "These are for real. More real than anything you'll see out there." She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. No laughter, no sarcasm, just quiet understanding. That was the first sign she might actually make it through a night here. It was around 9:40 p.m. when the first thing happened. We were restocking the drinks fridge when Chloe froze. "Laura," she whispered, "someone outside." I followed her gaze. Through the fogged glass doors, a figure stood motionless beneath the flickering sign, too still to be normal. I squinted. It was Mrs. Margaret, one of our regulars, lived 2 streets over, always bought milk and cigarettes. But something was off. Her neck was bent too far to the left, her head almost resting on her shoulder. And her right arm, it hung backward, the elbow twisted the wrong way around. She was smiling. I swallowed. Don't open the door. But she looks hurt. Don't. I reached out, pulling Chloe back just as Mrs. Margaret began tapping on the glass. Slowly, deliberately. Tab, tab, tab. Each tap made the lights above us flicker. Then she spoke. But her mouth didn't move. You left the door open last time, Laura. Chloe gasped. What is she talking about? The lights flickered again, 3 quick bursts. My stomach dropped. Move, I shouted. Back room now. We ran. The glass door shattered behind us, the sound splitting through the silence like a gunshot. As I slammed the back room door shut, something heavy hit it from the other side. Once, twice, the metal frame groaned. Chloe was shaking beside me. What is that thing? I grabbed the emergency flashlight and locked eyes with her. It's not Mrs. Margaret, I said. It's something wearing her. For 10 minutes, we stayed there in the dark, listening to the scraping and dragging outside. It was like claws against concrete, circling, testing. Then silence. A faint buzz filled the air. The power came back. I exhaled. Okay, that was the 3rd flicker. We wait 10 minutes. We don't go out until. But before I could finish, the sound of the front door chime echoed again. Ding! Chloe looked at me with wide eyes. How is that even? I locked it, I said. We both turned toward the small, grimy window in the door that looked out into the main store. Someone or something was walking through the aisles. Slow, heavy footsteps. But the shape was wrong. It didn't walk so much as it dragged itself. And when it passed under the flickering lights, I saw its reflection in the cooler glass. There were too many faces. The lights flickered again. The scraping came back, this time from the ceiling. Something was above us. I looked at Chloe. She was pale, trembling, whispering prayers under her breath. The clock read 10:00 exactly. Lock the door, I said. Don't look up. A low hiss spread through the air vents, the smell like iron and rot. Then a whisper just above us. You shouldn't have come back. The ceiling bulged. And then something fell through. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes, pale hands reaching through water, the echo of that girl's whisper vibrating behind my skull, and the endless hum from beneath the ground. It wasn't a sound you could escape from. It lived inside your teeth, in the roots of your tongue. By midnight, I gave up on pretending. The forest outside was alive with a strange kind of silence, not quiet, but expectant. The insects had stopped their chorus, the air hung still, and the faint, coppery smell of ozone drifted through the open window. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. At 12:47 a.m., the light flickered. Then it died. The house was swallowed by darkness so complete it felt thick, like wadding into tar. I grabbed my flashlight, but before I could turn it on, a distant rumble shook the floorboards beneath me. It wasn't thunder. It was deeper, slower, the sound of something massive shifting in the belly of the earth. I stumbled to the window. At first I thought I was hallucinating. The horizon was glowing, a faint red line like a cauterized wound, stretching from one end of the sky to the other. The air vibrated with static, raising goosebumps along my arms. Then, without warning, the sky cracked open. A jagged tier of white light split the heavens, cutting across the stars like a knife through fabric. The flash was blinding. I threw my arm over my eyes, and when I looked again, the red line had expanded, bleeding outward in ripples that pulsed like a heartbeat. The forest groaned. Trees bent as if something enormous was pressing down from above. My flashlight flickered violently and died. Then came the voices, whispering, hundreds of them, layered and distorted like an ocean of people speaking from the bottom of a well. I couldn't make out words, only the rhythm, a chant, circular and endless, vibrating in my bones. I backed away from the window, my chest tight. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave, but the same unseen force that pulled me into Black Hollow was still there, patient, coiled around my will. I wasn't in control anymore. Something in me, something that was no longer fully me, needed to see it. I grabbed my keys and ran outside. The air was hot, metallic. The wind had teeth. The forest ahead glowed faintly from that red horizon light, making the trees look like they were bleeding from their roots. I followed the path toward the hollow, the same path I had taken the night I first heard the hum. Every step felt wrong. The ground was soft, as if breathing underfoot. My ears popped, a pressure building in the atmosphere, and then a sound like screaming metal ripped across the sky. I stumbled, fell to my knees. When I looked up, I saw them, shadows moving along the ridge of the clearing. Not human silhouettes, not entirely. They were stretched, flickering like film frames out of sync, each movement stuttering forward in jerks of impossible geometry. They turned toward me in unison. The chant grew louder. The tear in the sky pulsed brighter, and for a moment I saw something through it, not light, not stars, but eyes. Dozens of them, watching, ancient and cold. The world tilted, my vision fractured. And then I wasn't standing anymore, I was falling, pulled forward by something vast and invisible. The air screamed past my ears. The forest became a blur, the ground vanished, and for a heartbeat I felt weightless. Then came the impact. A blinding flash, heat, the sound of cracking bone, or maybe it was the world itself splitting apart. When I opened my eyes, there was no forest, no house, no stars. Only a pale, gray expanse, an endless wasteland of ash and whispers. And there, at the center of it all, stood the girl. Her face was turned away, her dress tattered, her hair moving in a wind I couldn't feel. She was humming softly, the same tune that had haunted me since the first night. When she turned to face me, I realized her eyes weren't eyes at all. They were hollow, glowing like the tear in the sky. And when she spoke, her voice was every whisper I had ever heard, woven together into a single, impossible sound. "You opened it." The ground trembled, cracks spidered outward from my feet. Somewhere above or below, the hum returned, deeper than ever. Then, all at once, the world began to collapse inward, folding into itself like paper burning in reverse. I tried to scream, but there was no air. No sound. Only light, blinding, infinite light. And in that final flash, I saw the truth. The sky hadn't split open. We had. The earth beneath my hands was still warm. That was the first thing I noticed, the faint heat seeping up from the ground, pulsing in time with the low hum that rolled through the basin like the echo of a heartbeat. I rose slowly. My clothes were caked in dried mud, but there was no swamp anymore, only cracked soil and skeletal trees that stretched like fingers toward a colorless sky. Black Hollow was gone. Or maybe this was Black Hollow, what was left of it after the world folded in on itself. The air shimmered with ash that didn't fall. It just hung there, suspended, as though gravity had given up. My mind felt blank, scraped clean. Only fragments remained. The girl's hollow eyes, the tear in the sky, the way reality had peeled apart like rotted bark. I remembered falling or being pulled and then nothing. Just silence, endless and perfect. Until now. The hum deepened, vibrating through the soles of my boots. I turned, squinting through the haze. Shapes moved along the ridge, familiar silhouettes, warped and wrong. They didn't walk, they drifted, jerking in and out of focus like ghosts caught between frames of an unfinished film. One of them raised its head, and I saw my own face staring back. My stomach twisted. I stumbled backward, breath ragged. Every motion they made, I felt in my bones echoes of myself fracturing across whatever this place had become. It wasn't another world, it was a memory. A recording. A scar. I was inside the hollow now, not standing on it, and it remembered everything. The hum shifted again, morphing into something almost like a voice. It spoke through vibration, not sound, but I understood it, not in words, in meaning. You asked to know. My knees buckled. Who are you? I whispered. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. You already know. The ash parted before me, swirling into a narrow path that led down toward the heart of the basin. The ground glowed faintly beneath the dust, veins of red light pulsing like arteries. I followed, because there was nothing else to do, no sky, no horizon, just the path and the hum and the weight of something vast pressing down on my thoughts. At the bottom stood a mirror. No frame, no reflection, just a flat surface of black liquid, still and glassy. The hum was louder here, resonating inside my chest until it hurt to breathe. I stepped closer, the surface rippled. And then I saw her. The girl from the forest, the one whose voice had haunted my dreams, was standing inside the reflection. Her face was pale, her mouth slightly open, eyes burning with that same hollow light. But this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood countless others, faces half-formed, fading in and out like dying memories. They were all me. Thousands of versions, each frozen in a different moment, screaming, reaching, falling. The girl pressed her palm against the mirror. Do you remember now? My hand lifted on its own. When our palms touched, the surface of the mirror dissolved into liquid, and cold surged up my arm like electricity. My mind shattered open. Images poured in, centuries of them, lifetimes repeating the same loop. The hollow opening. The light swallowing everything. Me, always standing at the center, always the one who opened it. We weren't victims. We were the cause. The hollow wasn't a place. It was a mechanism, a wound in reality that fed on curiosity, on the need to understand what should never be known. And every time someone like me came too close, it used us to open itself again. I saw the girl's face twist into sorrow. It's too late now, she whispered. It always is. The mirror began to collapse inward, the black liquid draining into an invisible point. The ground split open around me, and from below came that same blinding light, pure, white, infinite. The hum became a roar, deafening, holy in its terror. I tried to step back, but the light pulled me forward. My body stretched, my vision tore apart into streaks of sound and color. I could feel every version of myself screaming in unison, echoing across countless hollowed worlds. And just before I dissolved completely, I heard the last words, not from the girl, not from the hum, but from somewhere inside me. The hollow doesn't end, it remembers. Then everything went silent. When I woke up, I was lying on my kitchen floor. The clock on the wall read 7:03 a.m. The world outside was normal, birds singing, sunlight leaking through the curtains. But my reflection in the window didn't move when I did. It just stared back and smiled.